Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
I know that you have uh, a what do you call it? Uh, a cat convict in your house.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I love painting. I'm very messy when I paint, though. Hence the reason I've got to have my flooring replaced this weekend in that room I just painted. But I had to run to Lowe's because they messed up the paint color. So when I put the first swipe on the wall, it was like 90s neon green. Okay. It was terrible. It's supposed to be like a sage green. So when I come back, I had the bright white trim paint still out. Guess who stepped in it and walked all over my hardwood floors? That would be Sherlock. So then I had to go back to Lowe's to get those wipes that gets paint up. I was on my hands and knees for like an hour and a half solid. Oh my gosh, he didn't even apologize.
No, he's
Incredible.
out.
Yeah, so we want to give a quick shout out to Two Cool T-shirt quilts. You can go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis, order you a quilt pillow. Really good work. Fruit Loop, we have another giveaway for a pillow this week, but we're not
We
going to.
do.
What are we going to? We don't even know what we're doing yet. Well, we kind of do, but we're,
We kind of do, but we're not going to tell you yet. So it's going to be really fun.
yes, more interactive this time with the, well, it was really
Yeah.
interactive last time, but are we
Yeah.
doing teams or are we just going to try to do it like as one?
I thought teams were pretty fun.
It was fun.
So
All right, cool.
we shall
Well,
see.
we will tell you guys soon once we get all the details, but we're gonna have
Yeah.
another pillow giveaway this month at the end of the month.
Yep. So you'll
So
get to put your name in the hat for that.
there we go. All right. So we're gonna jump right back in. We're still in the same clothes because we literally just finished the previous one. So
Yeah.
we're not even gonna try to fool you guys.
And you guys don't care. So,
Right, exactly. So I gotta get more rock shirts. I think I'm starting to go back through. It's
uh
taken a couple of months, but here we are. So this is February 28th of 2021, and Grusing told Barry that agents needed to share information with him. And Barry said, I've got a meeting here in about 10 minutes I was going to head for, but how long will it take? It seems like an inconvenience to him every time they come.
yep.
Although I have had a few people on YouTube who say that we are just making excuses for Suzanne. I'm surprised that Barry has a following, though. He has a lot of people who feel like he's not guilty
Yeah.
and that she was the villain, but okay. That's cool. We respect your opinions. Not hating. So the agent told Barry he had the right of refusal to the information, and Barry asked if this was about Suzanne and the guy. And Grusing said agents wanted to talk to him about the affair, technology, and other aspects. So Barry asked if they could give him the name of Suzanne's lover. And they asked Barry, what would that do for him to have his name? So Barry said it's a peace of mind, and he wanted to know if it was a friend or acquaintance. So he asks them, wouldn't they want to know if this was their wife? And agents told Barry that the man was not a friend of his. And Barry said, I know, but I need this for so we're literally saying what he says, y'all. He's stumbling.
We're not stumbling or
No,
stuttering.
they're gonna be like the girls went to the bar before they did their episodes
Yeah.
today.
I do not drink.
Me either. I'm too old, man. You just feel bad after. So just tell me who the guy is. I don't know. Why can't you answer that? I'm not going to do anything to this guy. I can't afford to leave the only parent that my daughter has. If I go beat some guy up and go to jail, I can't afford that. Would I want to? Yeah. Would you? Yeah. Somebody screwing your wife for 2 years behind your back. And Grusing responded, the evidence points towards her not being alive with the facts collected to date, not to determine who was guilty. So Barry said, and I'm not guilty. There's no doubt that I'm not guilty. I'm just telling you from what Joe and Derek did to me. This is where he goes in left field. Jim Commey's a liar. And do you think he's a liar? And Grusing said he did not know if Commey was a liar, and Barry interrupted. That's ridiculous. How could you not know he's a liar from what he said on the stand in front of the Senate? Grusing asked what he said, and Barry said, well, I don't know exactly what he said word for word, but they asked him questions, and he said, I do not recall, just like Hillary Clinton. Okay, I love the fact that all Barry says, I do not recall. So he says, all them freaking liberals don't recall anything when they don't want to tell the truth. Touche, Barry.
He's
Grusing,
talking about himself.
Yeah,
Oh,
Grusing told Barry the agents brought a notebook with evidence they would like to share with him, and Barry replied, "Could you answer some questions first? Was she with him in New Orleans?"
he's like all inquisitive.
Yeah.
So Grusing said she was, and Barry asked, and was she with him in Florida? Grusing said she was. After a pause, Barry asked, and Indiana? Grusing said she was. And Barry asked, and how long has this been going on? And Grusing said 2 years. So Barry said 2 years, and the agent said it began shortly after their move to Colorado. Barry asked, and you can't tell me where they connected the first time? Harris said they connected through social media, and Barry repeated social media. And Barry said, and the app you said they were using to communicate, there's no way that I could have known that. And what was that called again? And Grusing said agents did not want to give that to Barry. And he replied, I'm not going to go hunt. Grusing told Barry he was a hunter. Uh, that's just cold blooded. I would never do that to a guy, but I'm not going to do that. But just for me, for peace of mind, I'd just like to know who it is. And do you believe me when I say I had no idea this was even happening? What's comical is he talked to the guy. Remember at the golf course. You're muted.
We're gonna play a little game called Read My Lips.
Yeah.
No, because if you remember, they went to that party. This was before they were married, and they kind of, sort of. He said, kind of, sort of,
Yep.
but not really hooked up. And then
Yeah.
that's when Barry confronted him. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So Grusing said some of the evidence items that agents brought to show Barry would help prove he did not know. Barry said, well, I didn't know. I'm telling you right now. I mean, she was the last person in the world I would suspect would do this. But for her to pull this off blows me away. Barry says, did she leave that night? Because I told Joe and Derek that we had sex and went to bed and I went to sleep. And I work so hard that when I go to sleep, I'm out until 3 o'clock. Grusing asked about the hike to Foose's Lake, if that happened. And Barry said, well, I was confused on the hike too. I thought it was that Saturday, but after talking to Joe and them, it could have been Friday. It could have been Thursday. I remember us doing that, and I thought it was Saturday. So Grusing asked if Barry came home Saturday and went for the hike or bike ride. And Barry says, when I came home, we did lunch. Then Grusing asked if that was veggie soup, and Barry replied, yeah, lunch. Grusing asked if they hiked after lunch, and Barry said, I don't recall because I don't even recall taking my bobcat back to the crib.
Okay, I don't recall Barry.
I don't recall.
He just said that's when they don't want you to know the truth. So Harris confirmed Barry texted Crib that he was at the house and needed a few minutes. Barry said, "Oh, okay, and I don't know why. I've got a great memory. I don't know why I don't recall that." So Grusing said Barry called Tim backhoe, and Barry said backhoe attachment for the Bobcat. And I looked at that. I don't know if it was that day or what. Grusing told Barry he drove to where the backhoe attachment was, and Barry said, looked at it. Well, I didn't like it. I looked at it and I didn't like it. Yeah, I called him and told him I wasn't interested. Barry eventually said he wasn't interested because of the price. So Grusing explained that Suzanne took her last proof of life picture while Barry was out running this errand, and it was not apparent where she was. And Barry said, oh, she had to be at the house because, and then it trails off. Grusing said Suzanne's location at the house was unclear and asked Barry if he would look at the picture. Barry said, yeah. And like I said, I'm running really late. I don't have an hour, but let me look at this. He said, I would really like for you guys, since I'm being cooperative, trying to help you, that you would give me the name of this guy. I mean, that's all I want for a peace of mind. Then they tell Barry he's not been cleared in her death due to the evidence of the affair, the evidence collected, and his contradicting statements. Barry said, yeah, but it can't contradict my statements. There's just no way. I told Joe word for word, place for place, everywhere I was. Grusing said Barry told him he set his alarm for 4:30 on the 10th, and Barry said he doesn't remember setting the alarm, but he might have told them that. He also told them that he saw her, she was snoring when he left, and now he's saying, did she leave the night before? So the agents tell Barry he did tell them that, and Barry said not the phone alarm, the clock alarm. He said he sets it so much he doesn't remember, but he wanted to get an early start. When he wants to leave early, he sets an alarm, I guess, on the clock.
Hmm. So Grusing said they know he was moving well before 4:30, before the 4:30 alarm. Barry said he has an enlarged prostate and he gets up to pee all night through. The agent says, Barry, you were in your driveway. And Barry said, if I did anything outside, I didn't do anything wrong. Grusing explained Barry's statements do not matter compared to the importance of him seeing the evidence. Barry replied, it doesn't matter. Your evidence does not matter. Because if it's anything to do with tying me up with her disappearance, it's wrong. Grusing said the agents are in an auditor role, not determiners of guilt. Barry, there's nothing on my phone that shows that I knew about her affair. I know what you guys are trying to do. You're trying to say if I knew about that, then I did something. Barry was told that Suzanne had told Miss Ritter not to come over for coffee for that week. And Barry said, see, this is all pointing to her leaving. All of it is. And if she's in Mexico somewhere and she's freaked out or something went wrong, how do we know that? Barry said he had to go to work, but agreed to look at the last proof of life picture sent to Jeff. Barry said, well, look at her. She's obviously drunk. Look at her eyes. Do you know what drunk eyes look like? I mean, would you say those eyes are drunk eyes? Grusing says he looks for bloodshot eyes, and Barry says, I see lazy eyes when she drinks. He asked Barry if Suzanne was wearing the bathing suit when he came home on the 9th, and he said Suzanne was laying out. Barry said she was laying out and they had lunch. The agent said the photo was taken later in the day, and Barry said she must have went back outside. And when asked if she was still laying out the second time he came home, he said he doesn't recall. So the agent says Barry's phone was all over the house after he came home the second time, and Barry said, I shoot chipmunks. Grusing said it looked like he was chasing one, and Barry said he shot 85 chipmunks because they got into his furnace and cost him a bunch of money.
Alvin, Simon, and Theodore do not appreciate that.
No.
The agent asks if he uses a 22, and Barry says he does. He says when he's home, he just walks around and shoots them. He says every time he walks around the house, he sees more and more and just shoots them. The agent said Barry left his truck door open while he went to the patio, and Barry said yes. He said, yeah, shooting, while nodding his head. No, I'm shooting chipmunks. I've done that ever since we moved in. Barry doesn't recall what happened after that, so he's asked about the hike Barry says he took. And Barry said it could have been that they went, but he knows within the 2 to 3 days in question they did go. He didn't remember exactly when, and he told them in a prior interview that they had went after lunch. So the agent shows Barry a photo sent by Suzanne to Jeff the morning of the 9th and asks if that's the closet behind her, and Barry said yes. They also show him some texts. He's still wanting Arizona was read, and Barry said, who, me? Grusing confirmed. She had also told Jeff about them getting pizza the night before. If you remember, they went to Moonlight Pizza and took a picture and sent to the girls. Barry said, why is she talking to this guy about me and my life? Grusing reminded Barry of him asking agents about Suzanne being in Arizona and if he was suspicious about Suzanne's guy being in Arizona at that point. And Barry says, is this guy from Arizona? Grusing said no. And Barry said, can you tell me what state he's from? He tells Barry the guy's from Indiana, and Barry says, Indiana, from my hometown. And Grusing said he couldn't tell Barry that because if anything happened to him, it would put Barry in a really bad place. Barry interrupted, I understand that. And nobody knows but you guys, not Chafee, not CBI. I think it's embarrassing for him. That's why he wanted that to stay right there with the three of them because, you know, his wife was running around for 2 years. Barry was shown a picture of the locations around the Morphew house of Suzanne's phone activity at 4:10 a.m. and 4:15 a.m. on May 10th. That would be the early morning of Mother's Day. He said, well, if she did that, I have no idea it went anywhere but the house. But if you was to ask me, I'd say it was at the house the whole time. Grusing told Barry the agents wanted to complete this with him this evening. And he said, is it going to be done? When told it would be done, Barry asked, done? Grusing told Barry if he sat down with agents and went through the binder, agents would be done talking to him. Barry asked, but what if I tell you something wrong that was different with Joe and Derek? Barry said he would call them when he gets finished and walks away.
So
Got it.
this
Okay.
is Barry again on February 29th. Special agents Grusing and Harris were parked about a block away from Barry's condo. and Barry drove up beside them and handed them his 22 rifle, saying this was what he used to shoot chipmunks. He said he had to leave to go work out at the gym. Uh, so again, Barry on March 1st of 2021, Barry really starts to alter his statements to match evidence he had been made aware of. Agents asked if he turned right or left on Highway 50 when going to Broomfield on the morning of the 10th. Barry said he saw the elk herd, and he said he wanted to see how big this bull was, and he turned that way and they crossed in front of him. He said he drove to Garfield and turned around and headed to Broomfield. This is the first time Barry mentioned going this direction.
Yeah, it's months later. It's almost
Yeah.
what? Almost a year later? 9
Yeah.
months?
Yep. So this accounts for the missing mileage from his return trip home from Broomfield Hotel. Barry's odometer registered a 183-mile trip to the hotel that morning, including about 2 miles of deviations, and a 167-mile trip on the same route for an approximate 14 extra miles. This places Barry in the area where her helmet was found.
Dun dun dun. So March 5th, Barry was supposed to meet the agents the day before at 6 a.m. at his house, but Barry left at 5:40 a.m. and pulled into the DSI lot at 6:05 a.m. Barry told them he had a package at UPS to pick up, and they closed at 6, and he had to get there at 6 to come back to the gym. He said he didn't lie to them. Grusing said agents were working a homicide case and they wanted to work with him to clear him if possible. And Barry said that should have been done months ago. Grusing said the FBI's job is to gather facts, review warrants, and that Barry is the main person to explain the facts. They said Barry's cooperation was voluntary, and if he chose not to explain the facts, that was his decision. Barry said everyone has eyes on him and they see him talking to the FBI right then, and there's cameras around and it's going to get out that he was talking to them. Barry said talking to CBI was bad because things he had told them had gotten out in public. He said he wants to help find Suzanne and find out what happened. He said the things they've told him have crushed him. He went 9 months thinking one thing, and all of a sudden they came down on him and his whole mindset changed about this whole thing. He said he is crushed and doesn't know what to say or do, and he can't leave his daughter. And if they throw him in jail, he has a 17-year-old who's on her own, and you guys don't want that. He said he knows there's no evidence on him because it doesn't exist. Grusing said there are things that just aren't explained, and Barry can help with that. So Barry said they told him if he explained those things, they would clear him publicly. He said, because that's what I need, because this whole world is freaking, they've trounced me. Grusing said talking to agents isn't a bad thing, and Barry said it's not a bad thing for you, but if I say something wrong or I don't recall something, I told Joe this and tell you something else, boom, I'm done. I lied. Grusing said they've told Barry that if he said something that differs from what he's told Joe, they would let him know.
So Barry says he gave them his gun, his chipmunk gun. That's just funny. And I just pictured a little chipmunk holding a gun, like little chipmunk gun, like a little army.
Well,
little
maybe
army
in the next
gun.
world, the chipmunk will have the gun and Barry will be running.
There you go. And they didn't even take it. And the agent said it appeared the gun hadn't been fired in a long time. Barry said, yeah, it has. And he says, I'm telling you now, if I was guilty, I wouldn't hand my weapons over to you guys. Grusing said Barry's movements that afternoon, to include the truck door opening, him running from porch to porch, and Suzanne not answering texts from her lover, looked different from investigators' perspectives. Barry said he's explained that and says you can ask anyone who knows him that he's killed 85 chipmunks. And he says he's a busy bee who can't be still, and that's what he was doing that day. The agent says from 2:44 to 2:47, Barry was going to the porches, and at 2:47, his phone is put into airplane mode. He asked if Barry did that, and Barry asked if the phone was on him or in the kitchen, and the agent says they knew Barry was moving around the house from his phone movement, and Barry said, oh, because it was on me. The agent reminds him that Suzanne had told friends and Jeff she would track him because she suspected an affair, and the agent suggested Barry had put his phone in airplane mode to prevent being tracked. Barry said, no, I don't recall turning my phone into airplane mode. I don't recall that. The agent said it was in airplane mode from 2:47 to 10:18 p.m. and says maybe it was an accident, and Barry held his hand up as if he's holding a phone, and said it's the first thing that comes up when you hit settings, so it was probably an accident. Here's my point with that. You work construction, you get phone calls all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just convenient.
Yeah. So when asked about his truck doors opening and closing, Barry said, I had junk in my trunk, and I always have junk, and I'm always taking something out, leaving my door open. I mean, I don't know that's the case, but that's what I did. Harris tells Barry that the affair started because Suzanne needed someone to talk to. Barry asked if it was an old boyfriend, and Harris said no. He asked if they knew each other in high school, and Harris says Suzanne reached out to this guy because Barry was working all the time. Harris also says that to Suzanne, perception was reality. For example, when Barry put the gun to his head, he wasn't physically abusing her, but she felt he was. Barry said mentally and emotionally he knows because she told him that.
I'm not even gonna lie. I started singing that Black Eyed Peas song when he said he had all that junk in his trunk. What you
I
gonna
was thinking
do?
the same thing.
All that junk. So Barry said if he abused her in any way, it was emotionally, saying he got angry at times, but it was because she accused him of things that weren't true. Which is classic narcissism, is blaming her for all of his issues. He said she had no proof he fooled around on her, and after 32 years, he thought you could look at someone in the eye and say, "Honey, I would never do that to you," and they'd believe you, but she did not. He said that mindset was from her abusing alcohol and pills, depression, cancer, all of this. He said she made him a monster in her head and it blew up. So they go back to that turn on Highway 50 on Mother's Day morning where he said he saw the elk herd, which is where the helmet was. Grusing asked Barry about accounting for mileage when he saw the bull elk, whether he climbed or how he turned around. And Barry said, "No, I just turned around." And they asked where. So Barry said, "Garfield, probably the first place that I could turn left in. I didn't go in and then just turn around. I just backed in and went straight to Broomfield." He asked if he had no idea he should have told Joe about that. And then Grusing interrupted and said, Joe didn't know that back then. Barry said he didn't keep it from him. He just didn't think to tell him. Grusing said that Barry can't be a good dad to Macy with all this stress. And Barry said he's not. And this is killing her. He says he wants to put it behind him and start new, start over, but doesn't know how. He said, I love Suzanne and I hate what she did to me and it breaks my heart. But he says he can't live like this. Grusing says they're not going to investigate this forever, but Barry is their best source of information. So Barry then asks, what about immunity? Can you give me immunity and I just open my life to you? And I think that's very, I mean, why would you even ask for immunity? You do that when they got something on you or you know something, but you don't want to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
So, it's just like that was really, really strange.
Yeah.
So Grusing asked immunity for what? And Barry said, I think in case someone falsely convicts me or something. And Grusing says he won't be falsely convicted. Barry was told if something bad happened, agents would argue to the DA that Suzanne had the affair and talked about antagonizing him since May 5th. And Barry asked, she actually set a date? Barry was told it was that week. Barry asked, did she actually say to him that she wanted to leave me and be with him? And Grusing said yes. So Barry replies, she actually said that. Grusing said agents could show him the text that she wanted to start a new life with him. Barry said he had to get to work and asked agents to check on his rifle scopes and tax paperwork, whether they could be returned to him. Charlie just lost an earring down my shirt.
Uh oh. So this is Barry on March 5th. This is part 2. They talked about all of the friend requests that was sent from Suzanne's Facebook, and agents wondered if Suzanne did that to make Barry mad, and he says she has never done that in her life. They asked if Suzanne told him she had befriended or had friended all these people, and Barry said no, and then said he has her phone and she gave him full access with a passcode. He then asked if agents have her phone, and they say no. Barry said he figured they had her phone and then says that's weird because he thought from day one they had her phone. They asked Barry where to look for her phone, knowing where the bike and helmet was located, and Barry said in between. When talking about Suzanne's affair, he said, you know darn good and well what everybody's going to say. I mean, I don't know if you guys think it. He said, they'll say Barry found out and killed her. Barry tells agents he had no clue until they told him. When asked about the argument captured on the spy pen where they're talking about money and Barry keeps saying he will pay Suzanne back, he says he had borrowed $100,000 from her dad and it caused problems with her brother. Suzanne wanted to use inheritance money from her grandma to pay it back, and Barry was saying he would pay it back.
If you remember, he tried to blame her brother
Yeah.
for murdering her, and you could tell they had beef.
Yeah.
So
So Barry admits he probably went by the location where her helmet was found while looking at the elk herd. He was asked about his first stop on his trash dumps. He said he probably grabbed junk sitting in the seat. They label this trash run number 1. When asked why his truck was parked in the hotel parking lot in what agents call trash run number 2, Barry says he was sitting and waiting for someone to come out so he could go in the door and get a free breakfast. Wow. They asked why he was carrying boots into his hotel room on the 10th, and he said he took the laces out of them to keep them. According to him, the boots had holes in them. He said the papers he was holding was papers for the job he was studying. He says he changed shirts at the hotel because it was a hot day. They talked about the McDonald's trash run, and Barry says he pushed the trash with his hands so it would fit. He couldn't remember the small item he threw away, and he admits, I know it looks bad, and it probably looks bad to Joe, but nothing's here. This is trash run number 3. Barry says from what he's seen, Suzanne left and he wants to go to Mexico to find her, saying she doesn't have to go through a border, and he wonders if she has $70,000. Barry says she turned into a different person. She was working out and had never been as fit, and he said she had never been this ballsy in her life. He said her mind was altered from drugs and alcohol, and he thinks that has to do with her disappearance.
So I think this is a good place to stop for this episode. The next part's quite lengthy, so we will end it here. Just a reminder, tomorrow we're going to start covering the Curtis Reeves trial, and that's the ex-police captain accused of shooting and killing a man in a movie theater who was texting. So we will pick this back up. Probably, we'll just see how this trial goes. But in the meantime, check us out on social media. You can subscribe on YouTube, hit the little bell for notifications, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we will see you guys soon. Hope you have a good rest of your day.